All right, we are live, and I do not understand why I have audio problems the first time I try to go live, and then things start to work the second time. We'll continue to work through it. So, coaching or training, coaching, mentoring. These a lot of times these tools are used synonymously. Like they end up, we start talking about training, and what we're actually doing is coaching. We start talking about mentoring, and what we're really looking for is a coach. We start talking about coaching, and what we're really looking for is initial training. And I'd like to kind of break down the differences between the three of those from my perspective and my experience. Training is really about knowledge transfer relative to information, how to do knowledge, information, something about something. So, training could be how do you use a stove effectively, or how do you swing a golf club effectively. What are the mechanics associated with doing the thing? There could be some training or knowledge transfer around a specific set of requirements that we have from a safety perspective when we're on job sites. Whatever those things are, there's a training component. The training component is a transfer of knowledge, transfer of information, for the purpose of either thinking about something differently, doing something differently, or gaining an additional perspective. And that's where training comes in. If you look at the actual definition of training, there are other ways that the word train is used. Train is also used, or to train is also used when thinking about plants. So if you've ever noticed any of the bamboo that has kind of a spiral or a weave or braided bamboo, that bamboo is trained to grow in that manner. Or if you've ever been to an In-N-Out burger and you've looked at the palm trees that are angled, those are planted and trained to uh, come together and then grow together in a specific manner. So there are a number of things that you can train knowledge, train skills, train a specific behavior. Now, where things start to shift a little bit is when you get into things like coaching. Coaching takes it to the next level. So you can train someone around what the expectations are, what your guidelines are, where how you recommend that something happens, or what the standard is. Then, when you coach, you can identify smaller opportunities to improve in an incremental way that is very personal to the individual. One of the ways that I like to distinguish training and coaching is if I'm talking to a group of people, that's likely some kind of training. When I'm working with an individual person, it could be training, but more likely it's coaching. It's a specific, we're doing something specific for that person to help them get from and point A to point B, move from where they are today to where they'd like to be as things go forward. So, training, knowledge, skill, information, coach, help help somebody move, advance, get closer to where they're looking to go. And then the third one is mentoring. And mentoring is more, at least for me, is more about how can I take cues from the person that I'm working with, or help someone take cues if I'm working with them as a mentor. So, what, depending on if I'm a mentor or mentee relationship, as a mentor, it's how can I help the person who is trying to get to wherever the heck it is that they want to get to look at things a little bit differently, see things a little bit differently, provide some guidance where it makes sense, because I've been there and I've done that. I've seen how the movie plays out. I've read that book. I've played the role in that space. As a mentee, what I'm looking for is that I find someone who has been there and done that before, who can help me understand what are some of the questions I should be asking that don't even come to mind, don't even aren't even something that I'm thinking about when I go into a new situation. They help me envision, a mentor helps me envision a future that's different than the future that I'm currently operating in, and lay out some potential um, stepping stones to step on as we move along it. One of the cool things about the mentor mentee relationship is that a relationship is critical. Both are benefiting from the relationship. Um, the mentor benefits from working with the mentee because the mentor gets better perspective of how things have shifted or changed. It's one of the great things I get out of some of the mentor mentee relationships that I have with folks, whether it's someone who is a new sales director and at some point in time they'd like to move into a chief revenue officer role or a VP of sales role, whatever that role is. Those can be really powerful conversations and discussions because you start to get a sense for how someone who is new in the role is thinking about things. And then you also get to lay out some stepping stones or provide some guidance, some experience, some of the gray hair and wrinkles to help them envision a future that might be even different or even better than what they might be able to envision on their own. So let's break this down from a relationship perspective. Go to the whiteboard. From a relationship perspective, is it more important, positive or negative? What's more important from on this continuum? A really strong relationship is more important in things like mentoring. Mentoring, you want to have a really strong relationship. Coaching, I put it in the middle, and training, I put over here. So when you're training someone, the relationship that you've got with the person who's being as a trainer training a group of people, the relationship you have directly with the audience is not as important. But what's more important is, did you design the training properly to achieve the desired outcomes, the objectives, the conveying of information, the conveying of knowledge, the demonstration of skill. So relationship, if we were to look at relationship on a scale of most important to least important, mentoring I'd put on the 10, and training I'd put in the 0 to 1 kind of side of things. So when thinking about the relationship you have with others and the job that needs to be done by the person who fits this trainer, coach, or mentor role, relationship is really important on the mentoring side, not as important on the training side. So let's talk about some other pieces. Like what else is when looking at mentoring versus coaching? Can you do this in a group environment? So if we want to do group, one to many, versus individual, one to one, where would you put these on the continuum? Well, now what I would do is I would put mentoring on the one to one side of things. I'd put training can be one to one or one to many, and coaching, again, kind of falling in the middle. I'm not a fan of coaching in a group environment. I think when you coach in a group environment, it starts to feel a bit more like training. It's this transfer of knowledge, this transfer of information, this demonstration of work. When you can work one-on-one with someone, you can actually start to get into things like mechanics, foot position on a pedal, or cues that you're using when lifting weights, or um, asking specific questions around the question that's being asked in a discovery call as you start to coach a sales rep on how to conduct better discovery. So coaching, I believe, is more one-to-one. So I'd actually lean it more toward this side, coaching and mentoring in that one-to-one area. Training is more of the one-to-many. This can be workshop environments, breakout sessions. The cool thing about coaching, training, and mentoring, all of them can solve for the same specific problem. Like, let's use cooking as an example. If I want to get better at cooking, I can view some training, I can work with a coach, and I can work with a mentor. All three of those tools will help me get better at cooking. We'll create a scenario where I can get better at cooking. Now, depending on where I am on that cooking journey, training might be the first place to start because I'm working on getting some knowledge, getting some information, and then trying to put that into practice to figure out what is it that I like, what is it that I want to do more of. Once I start to figure out a little bit more about what I like and what I want to do more of, then I might look for a mentor or look for a coach that can help me get better at dicing peppers, as an example, or a mentor that might help me think differently about the type of cooking that I get into. The same thing happens on the weightlifting side of things and the fitness. I can go in and I can work with a trainer who can show me technique, build out a program, tell me some of the things I should be thinking about relative to movement, recovery, and fuel. I can work with a coach who will help me get really specific and really detailed in the technique that I'm using, or I could work with a mentor who might help me think a little bit differently about how I address the fitness challenge over the long term. Let's apply it into business. It's kind of the work that we're doing. You have someone who moves into their first leadership role. We put them through management and leadership training. We make that training a one-time event sometimes. We do our people a disservice by doing this. We put them in a room, they get together among a group, there's a bunch of information, there's some ideas around what works, what doesn't work, what something is, some preconceived notions around and assumptions are made. Then we ask them to go out and lead people. Well, what resources do we give them after the fact? It's one thing to be trained. It's another thing to actually put that work into practice. And then an even different thing to start thinking about, how do I do things differently when things don't work? How do I apply different tools? So this is where a coach in one of the for a an early career leader inside your organization can be extremely helpful. And the unfortunate thing is when we put new leaders in these roles, they go in with this view of, hey, I've been promoted in the role. I need to demonstrate that I can do this stuff. I need to show what my capabilities are. And they don't feel comfortable raising their hand and asking for help. We as leaders are enabling that behavior. Actually, we're disabling that behavior by not creating the space for folks that we've promoted into those roles to be able to ask for help. Now, we might say, hey, ask me if you have any questions, or let's talk through this, or share experience. If you don't have a genuine relationship with the person on the other end, there's not going to be there's going to be a lack of trust. That lack of trust is going to create situations where that person is not going to be as vulnerable with some of the challenges they're working through, and then ultimately they're not going to get themselves into a situation where they can learn faster, do better, be better for their people. So what I would advise you to do, in addition to the training that you're sending that new leader to, invest in a coach. And there are a number of different people like me who do this, who can coach, be there as a coach to help guide people through challenges, help them think differently about challenges, and then help them do differently when it comes to those leadership challenges that exist out there. And, if we go in and we just do the training piece, that's only one step. The application of training is what helps us reduce the risk of, yeah, in Ebbinghouse's forgetting curve. If we go out there, we learn something once, and we'll learn to ride a bike. If you don't ride a bike every day for a couple of years, and then you stop riding a bike, if let's say you learn how to ride a bike, then you don't do it. The next time you go and try to ride a bike, you're going to struggle. There's going to be some challenges. Your balance isn't going to be right there because you didn't get that repetition. Where ongoing reinforcement, ongoing training, ongoing coaching, you can get this spaced repetition, this repeating of putting the work into practice, and start to test and assess and build those specific skills. Again, each of these tools has a place. Each of these tools can be used to help you get better at the work that you're doing, help your team get better at the work that you're doing. I think the thing that I would recommend as a call to action here is figure out what the specific problem is that you're looking to solve for. Once you've identified that specific problem, then think about, how might I solve that for that problem in the context of training? Where might I go and get additional training, read a book, go through some videos, engage in a course? How might I address that problem with a coach someone who has been there, done that, and can help me work through some of those specific things that I'm working on to help me to get from A to B quickly? And how might I apply a view of mentorship on that problem to help see if there's a way to solve it? And then when you've got those three different perspectives on how to solve the problem, then look to who are the people who you know that are in your network or outside of your network that you might link up with who could help you work through those challenges. Who would be a good trainer? Who could make a recommendation on a good trainer? Who would be a good coach? Who could make a recommendation on a good coach? Who might be a good mentor as they work through it? Some really good mentors that you can lean on, especially when it comes to parenting. Lean on your parents. See how they might be able to help you think differently so that you can do differently when raising your kids. Now, others that you might want to look at some of the people in your neighborhood who maybe have already moved through that path. Have some conversations with them. Go to lunch. Talk with them about the things that they wish they would have done a little bit differently. That's not a training relationship. They're not training you on how to be a better parent. They're not coaching you on your specific parenting skills. They're operating as a mentor, a sage, or guide that can help you think differently so that you can do differently. If this is interesting to you and you're interested in thinking differently so that you can do differently, you fall into the category of preneur, which is something that we've been talking about a lot lately, both on LinkedIn and on Twitter and Facebook and a couple of the other areas. Check out the Phoenix Club. Whether you're an entrepreneur, someone who wants to build a business and hire people and maybe sell that business at some point in time, you're a solopreneur, someone who wants to build a business but never wants to hire people. You'll figure out ways to outsource certain work, 1099 work. You're an entrepreneur, someone who wants to think differently and do differently, but do it inside your organization, grow with the backing of the business that you're a part of. Or you're like I was way back when, a entrepreneur where you wanted to start a business, but you didn't know exactly how to do it. And you didn't know the different ways that you could test both as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, as an entrepreneur. If you want to think differently so that you can do differently, you're a preneur. And if you're a preneur, you might find value. Actually, I guarantee that you'll find value in the Phoenix Club. We are building a community of professionals, of leaders who rise together. We know that we get better by helping others get better. When we help others get better, we get better ourselves. We can share perspective. We can ask questions. We can help others avoid and identify and avoid and overcome blind spots. If you are a preneur, if this sounds like you, someone who thinks differently so that you can do differently, or wants to think differently so that you can do differently, check out the Phoenix Club. If you are interested in one-on-one coaching, specifically to help you achieve a goal, accomplish something that's been out there for a while that you haven't been able to make progress on, and you want to do that over a 90-day period, come join me in the May version of our game plan cohort. There's a webinar that we're going to do tomorrow around getting your game face on. This is a structured program. It's a 90-day version of the game plan that I've done over the last number of years. We originally kicked this thing off back in 2018 as the reset. 2018, 2019 is the reset, which is basically get shit done in a short period of time as you prepare, start working toward what's next. If that sounds interesting to you, check out what I'm doing on the one-on-one coaching side with the game plan. It's a 90-day program. There will be 6 one-to-one sessions in there, organized by 2-week sprints. So it gets us out to a 12-week period. There will also be some group discussions in there as well. If either of those sound interesting, if you want to do it as a large group, come and join us at the Phoenix Club and hit me up with any questions that you have there. If you want to get into some more one-on-one specific work, then check out the game plan coaching cohort that is going to kick off in May. Both of those are paid programs, and look forward to hearing your questions and seeing you get involved. If you know somebody who would find value in this video, please share it with them. There are so many different ways that we can use coaching, mentoring, and training, or training, coaching, and mentoring as tools to help us do the things we want to do better. Sales is a thinking process. Business is a thinking process. Life is a thinking process. How are you thinking differently about your process? Thank you.